Hello everyone, it's David Bell here. Welcome along to Live on Air tonight, where we've got the two fantastic guys, Stuart and Matthew, and we're going to be talking movies. We're going to be talking the hit movies of 2015 and why, from a movie maker's perspective and a movie marketer's perspective, these are the best movies to go and see. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can get a very quick look at what Matthew and Stuart have said. And what I'd like to do is just basically read the list out, and then I'll get each of them to start talking about their movies. So Matthew's chosen Sicario, Taxi, Ant-Man, Deathgasm, Legend, and Stuart's top five are The Avengers, Citizen 4, Mad Max, The Walk, and Star Wars Episode 7. So at that point, I'm just going to take that screen share away. And look, over to you, Matthew. Tell us why you think Sicario and Taxi are the must-see movies.
Well, they're both really riveting movies for quite different reasons. Sicario is a film that I always enjoy, crime drama, and it's certainly one of the very, very best of the year, I think. It's about the escalating war against drugs in the border area between the US and Mexico. And it was about 15 years ago now that Steven Soderbergh released his film Traffic, which was a very big hit, won lots of Oscars. But this film is really very hard-hitting kind of, I guess, follow-up to that movie. And it just shows that any hope you saw in Traffic is absolutely eviscerated now. So really, yeah, good stuff.
That's sounding great. Okay. Stuart, your number one is The Avengers.
Yeah, I think the main reason I chose The Avengers is that it has a lot of characters in it, which I think everyone can relate to in some sense or form. It's got a fantastic storyline, which is jam-packed with action, but it's also something which is like quite a good personal journey with each and every person along the way. So I would put that as my number one, and it'd probably stay there unless Star Wars delivers a riveting performance, which is sort of what I'm banking on, as I've listed it as my fifth best movie of the year. And as for the ones in the middle, David, yeah, there are some fantastic ones. I think particularly The Walk, I thought was outstanding in terms of the voyeurism and the vertigo which each person experiences in the movie theater. I certainly know that, like, you almost sort of could hear the sloshing in people's shoes as they were walking out from all the sweat which had been building up as Philippe was walking across the Twin Towers. It was very sort of exciting and very enjoyable as well, very simple. For my other one, yeah, Citizen 4, the documentary about Edward Snowden, very engaging, very eye-opening, and also very hard-hitting.
Okay, that's great. And if we come back to you, Matthew, you've got Taxi, Ant-Man, etc.
Yeah.
None of your lists coincide.
No, they don't. It's odd because I really enjoyed a lot of Stuart's ones. Like I loved the new Mad Max movie. But I was just trying to come up with a sort of a bit of a diverse range. So you have Taxi, which is actually an Iranian film about a man who, it's a true story, got banned from making films in Iran. So he just drives around in a taxi with a camera and interviews the people who get in the back. It's just brilliant. Ant-Man I chose because I wanted to put a big blockbuster in there, and I thought that was a really, really good one. The other two, Deathgasm, is a New Zealand film that started as a poster and a tagline, entered into a competition called Make My Horror Movie, and it won. And they just got it out there quickly. It's doing so well everywhere it plays. It's completely crazy, insane, horror, heavy metal movie. It's not something I would normally enjoy, actually, but I really liked it. And Legend is absolutely amazing film. Tom Hardy plays the Krays brothers in London, late 1960s. It's incredibly violent. It's brilliantly done. And he really proves that he is a leading man. And I think you look at him in Mad Max, and that's a great film, but in Legend, he really shows his acting chops. So I chose that one.
Now, I'm just going to bring the list up again. So we've got someone in viewing, and here we go. Now, with that particular one, Legend, about the Kray brothers, and you said, hey, this is quite a violent sort of movie, which I can understand. That was a pretty violent period in the crime scene in London.
Yeah.
How does sort of violence figure across these 10 movies, which doesn't matter that you haven't chosen the same ones, but is violence a feature across all of the movies?
Well, certainly not in Taxi and not in The Walk. The others, yeah, a bit of violence going across those, actually. Yeah, it's an interesting point.
How about for
There's
your...
certainly a couple of moments of, I guess, peril, particularly in the Avengers and certainly Star Wars, you know, just sort of the title really says it all. And in Mad Max as well, I think, because that's sort of like a big focus of the theme is sort of enslavement and I guess sort of fighting back. So yeah, there's always going to be that element. But but as far as Citizen 4 and The Walk go, it's quite limited.
Yeah.
Okay, so whoever is viewing, you're very welcome to put in what you think are the top movies that you've seen in 2015, and we'll start to get a third list going on here. I'd like to ask Stuart and Matthew, if you guys, out of that list of 10, do you think the two of you could come to a common opinion on what might be the best one to recommend to someone like me to go and see, who's not normally a moviegoer?
Well, what do you reckon, Stuart? I think you would probably enjoy Sicario, actually, David. It's very political. It's got lots of really interesting themes. Well, you must go see the new Star Wars movie too. I certainly will be.
Yeah, Denis Villeneuve certainly did a fantastic job with Sicario. I think when you've got, like, you know, action thrillers, they can often sort of fall by the wayside in terms of lots of action, lots of explosions, and then you don't really feel like you've come out of the cinema having watched very much. So he certainly managed to get a good blend and integration there, which is sort of why I'd sort of go with Matthew on that one. I'd, you know, reluctantly say yes, Sicario would be the best one, even though I think The Avengers is also a very good watch, and in my mind, possibly the best one I've seen so far in 2015.
Well, look, guys, you've persuaded me. I will now go and see Sicario. And what about if I want to write a review of Sicario after I've seen it? And I just don't want to write it for my own audience and six senses. But so how would I go about doing that? How would I go about sharing what I thought of the film? Do you guys have websites or ways in which we could communicate thoughts about movies?
Yeah, so on cinemaddicts.co.nz, if you want to put a review of Sicario up, you're more than welcome to. One of the big mistakes which a lot of new reviewers make is they tend to rely overly too much on plotline rather than actually just giving their take on how did you find the integration of the characters, were the actors a good fit for the role, did it make sense, was it something which made you think, were you just passive, those sorts of things I think make it very engaging. So yeah, as far as wanting to share it, even if you have your own blog, you can just write the review, put it up, we'll retweet it and share it on Cinema Addicts, and you're A for away.
Yeah.
And what about you, Matthew?
Yeah. Well, David, I don't have a website just yet. That will be launched later this month. That's promoting my new feature film that I'm making. But at the moment, I would certainly, I have my film company, Pelham Films, is on Facebook and Twitter, and I would love to share a review of yours. It would be great.
I'm really brief in my reviews, I hate to say. I'm not sort of... I'm a very wordy kind of guy, but when I go and watch a movie, it's usually, did I cry, or did it move me, or did it make me laugh? Really the top things. Now, I haven't got a list of, because I've hardly been to the movies this year. But I went and saw The Dressmaker a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it really moved me in terms of, it's such a fantastic story where the hero dies a pretty grisly death, and you think you've got to the end of the film, but there's one final twist, or a couple more twists in that. So leaving the movie, I thought, God, I really enjoyed that. I could go and watch that movie again, and that, to me, I mean, that's sort of, I suppose, a simple criteria. It's not the most brilliant of criteria, but would I like to go back and see that again? How do you guys feel about that? Of all of those 10 movies that you've listed, would you go back and see them all again and again?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'd see Stuart's ones too. Definitely. I think it's an important kind of quality for picking your best movie. I was thinking about putting The Martian in my top 5, but then I thought, no, I don't really want to see that again. Maybe they should have just left Matt Damon on the damn planet. So, I think it's important to it was good while it was on, but if you want to see it again and again, now that's a movie. That's really, what I call a sacred experience of going to the church of the cinema.
I see we've got a comment that's come through from Peter Lane. Great that you're watching in here, Peter, and just keep feeding the comments through. We'll make it a four-way dialogue. Peter said the best cinema movie he's seen this year is Tomorrowland.
Okay.
Any comments about that?
I haven't seen Tomorrowland, to be honest, but I love a Disney movie. They are, they make incredible films all the time, and even, their franchises like Pirates of the Caribbean based on a ride, Tomorrowland based on an area of their theme park. But they have some incredible talent behind them, and obviously it's a huge studio. So, but I find their creativity it's very interesting. Disney, they really look after their movies very well, which is why I think the new Star Wars film was in good hands.
Okay.
Yeah, I think with Tomorrowland, it's a bit of a mixed one, I see, because I was actually looking at the Rotten Tomatoes consensus on it earlier, and it seems to sort of swing either way depending on what your preferences are. But when you look at, I guess, the director Brad Bird, who's made The Incredibles, has worked on The Simpsons, you've got George Clooney and Hugh Laurie, who really don't need much of an introduction. It's certainly got the potential to be fantastic if you're big fans of these people, and if you have a very, I guess, open mind towards the sort of ideas which are being conveyed in the film. So I'd probably put it in the zone or area of it's a good film for those that have an interest either in those actors, or the director, or the idea of the film's trying to convey.
Okay, well, Peter said, I don't know whether you guys, can you see the Q&A pod in your screens or not? I'm not sure. No. Okay. Peter's added the comment. He said, yeah, the best movie he's seen is Tomorrowland, but it says it probably says more about his lack of movie going this year. But he also says, and this is sort of a bit different from what you were saying, that The Martian was really good too.
Yeah, it was. But I don't know, I just, at the end of the film, I thought, gosh, they must have spent billions on rescuing one guy, and it's Matt Damon, who I don't find him that appealing.
Right.
But a damn good movie, for sure.
Right.
Certainly has got a good character element to it, and it's very enjoyable as a one-off, certainly. Although in terms of seeing it again and again, it'd probably be best served looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
Also, wasn't there the movie with Sandra Bullock, which had a similar theme the year before?
Yeah.
Gravity,
Yeah.
right?
Gravity.
Yeah, and it's another movie it's very edge of your seat, and I don't think I'd watch that again either. But again, while it was on, very enjoyable, brilliantly made movie.
Okay.
Sort of one of those movies you can really only go see in 3D IMAX to fully experience it, hey?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you think watching it from your home, it's sort of like a case of, oh, really? I remember when my parents rented it out from the store. It was the second time I was watching, and I thought, oh, it just really isn't the same.
No, I can see why. That's for sure. Yeah, that's one example of 3D actually really working. It wasn't a film that was put in 3D just for the sake of it to get a higher ticket price. The 3D really brought you into the experience. So I definitely agree with that.
Okay. Just in case he can get in, I've sent an invitation to Peter. Peter's presented with me. He's very much into Green Church and a whole lot of that kind of thing. So we may get another person coming in. Peter, if you look on your Gmail, I think it is, and click the link, you should be able to get in. Okay, guys, what I'm kind of interested in now is, from a Christian perspective, you guys might or might not be Christians. I don't know. Well, I do know about Stuart because we go to the same church, and I do know that Matthew comes from a Roman Catholic background. And
I'm a recovering Catholic, David.
Recovering Catholic.
I think that's the term, yeah.
The one film that you each chose for a Christian audience to see was Everest and Inside Out. And I just wonder if you guys would like to comment on Everest and Inside Out.
Yeah, so Everest is a very good film because it sort of, I guess, captures that element of, I guess, self-sacrifice. It's got a very relevant New Zealand theme to it. You know, Rob, who's the climbing expedition leader, is a New Zealander, and then there's his wife as well, who's played by Keira Knightley. And it's definitely got, I guess, those sort of Christian themes in it. It's got, like, self-sacrifice. It's sort of got, like, the very real challenges of, I guess, keeping on the straight and narrow, because you sort of make one slip and it can have huge repercussions on what happens to you, your livelihood, your life. So, and it's also very engaging and exciting with Jason Clarke, Jake Gyllenhaal, and a couple of other very prominent actors who are taking part in it.
Stuart, just come back to Keira Knightley. What do you make of her as an actress? Some people think she's pretty good and others not so sure. Any comments about that?
I quite enjoy Keira. She's a very talented actress, and particularly when she hits the right roles. I think ones in which she's in, I guess, a feminine role, I think she's very good at. When she's sort of, I guess, pushed out of that comfort zone, I don't think she responds as well as she possibly can. So yeah, it's definitely depends on what role she's in. Like, if you look at, like, Atonement, if you have a look at the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, the second two weren't so good, but the first one particularly, and also as well in, like, Everest too, she was fantastic because the role was made for her rather than the other way around.
Any comments about that from your perspective, Matthew?
Oh, I think she's a very capable actor. She's really does her thing. Some people find her, I'm not sure what the term is, maybe a little bit winsome or something, but I don't really get that from her. I think she might be the kind of actor who needs the right kind of role and shouldn't say yes to everything that's offered to her. A little bit like, say, Angelina Jolie, who's an incredibly talented actor, but has been in some absolutely dire movies.
Okay.
Yeah, so putting her in a bodysuit and getting her to run around with guns, didn't really work for her. So I think with Keira Knightley, maybe she's a little bit the same.
Yeah, I'm not, as you know, I'm not a great movie buff, but I saw it in a film 3-4 years ago, maybe. Can't quite remember. And it was a film about Carl Jung, and she played the part of. She was one of his first patients. I mean, it's a true story, and as a young doctor, he had an affair with her. Now, I thought she played that part really quite brilliantly, and I mean, it was a movie with a pretty powerful message. But as far as I was concerned, I just sort of wondered why people thought she was, as you said, a little bit. What was the word you used? Was it?
Oh, winsome.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. Yeah, and that movie you're referring to, David, is by the very good director David Cronenberg. And I thought that was a very off movie for him. He's such a good director, and that film, I really didn't care for that one at all. But anyway, that was just me.
That must be because of my great interest in the work of Carl Jung, because I thought it was, I thought it had a lot of insights attached to it. So we could maybe. I wouldn't recommend it as the film that a Christian audience should go to see necessarily, unless they were also interested in Carl Jung. But be that as it may, let's move on. And I'm also really interested in you guys telling us what are the worst movies and why that's the case. So I'll just hand it over to you. The worst movies.
Oh. I have a worst movie, but it's for a very specific reason. Mine is called Gem and the Holograms. It's based on the 80s kids show, the animated 80s kids show. And the reason I chose it is because it wasn't made for fans of the original series. So they didn't have that audience to tap into. And also, they couldn't tap into young people who had never heard of this TV show. So it was essentially a film without an audience.
Yeah, for me, I would probably say the worst film I saw all year was whilst on holiday in South Africa. I went to go see Paul Blart, Mawkes 2. Now the first one was bad. I'm amazed that they, signed them up for a second go, because absolutely awful, very terrible, no real story or sort of personal element to it, and it just fell over from the beginning and sort of was falling down the hill after that. I would say there's two honourable mentions as well that I'd like to mention. 50 Shades of Grey would be number one. Trainwreck with what's the actor's name? The woman? Amy Schumer. Yeah, Amy Schumer, that's the one. She's sort of, everyone was laughing their head off, and I felt like I was the only person in the room that didn't understand what the big joke was, because it was just very, very strange.
Is that something that when a movie goes wrong, it really goes horribly wrong? Is that a fair comment?
Yep. With Gem, it was a bad idea from the start. With Stuart's choice, I think that movie was just pure dreadful. There's just nothing about it. It just appeals to, idiots and morons.
Well, 50 Shades of Grey as well was, it was a bad book. I mean, a horrible book, very poorly written. The fact that, it not only became a bestseller, produced sequels, and got made into a movie, I mean, shows that there's obviously must be a market for it.
Yeah, there's always a market for bad writing, hence Twilight.
I think that's a really important kind of point, because, what constitutes something being popular? if it's popular, does it make it good? If it's popular and sells, does it make it better? These are, questions, particularly, if I can put it this way, if you're looking for a kind of a Christian audience at movies, they may be attracted to bad films, but bad films for different sets of reasons from what you guys are talking about. Peter Lane has said idiots and morons is a large market share. Can you guys talk to me about idiots and morons?
Yeah, I should have clarified. People with a moronic sense of humour. That was a little bit mean, but this is why Jackie Collins, may she rest in peace, why her books did so well. Because people enjoy a bit of trash.
Is it the largest market share? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the time I think it is, because you have a look at some of the films which have been financially very successful. They've been pretty poor by, I guess, not only a critical standard, but also by people's impressions of it. I think with the latest Transformers which came out, people knew that it wasn't as good as the first one. They knew that the whole storyline and element of it was very tired and sort of, in major need of a reboot from someone that could bring originality and freshness to it, and it didn't really have that. I guess you sort of have a look at, I remember another film that came out called, I think it was Baby Geniuses. A very, very strange film, and it was probably one of the weirdest ones I've ever seen. And it's sort of, the reason it stuck with me for so long is because people will remember it for years to come, just because it was truly dreadful. So I think you can capture a large market audience within those two categories. But as far as what makes a great film, I think one which you'll probably remember for years, decades, and centuries to come. And if you ever look at a film like the original Star Wars, The Shawshank Redemption, they're both two films at the opposite end of the spectrum. I guess financially, Star Wars was hugely successful financially, whereas in The Shawshank Redemption, when it originally came out, wasn't so. But as soon as people started picking up on it, they thought, "Wow, this is fantastic! It's amazing, and I'll remember it." And as a result, it's often up there in the top 3 with IMDb.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you guys were looking maybe beyond 2015, we've talked in the past about what, your kind of absolute favourites of all time. But is there a sort of a trend that's going on that you see emerging across the world of movies where maybe in a particular genre things are just getting better and better? In the idiots and morons category, things could conceivably be getting worse and worse and worse. But in some other categories, do you see sort of improvement after improvement after improvement? And what is it like your one about Sicario?
Well, I hope that movies like that can continue to be made. I'm worried because ever since, say, about the mid-70s, the blockbuster has been the thing. There was Jaws, there was Star Wars, great films, but what they did is create a kind of an environment where studios would focus on those big blockbusters of the year, and some of the smaller, lower budget movies that undoubtedly have an audience got forgotten about. So I hope that as the blockbuster is unstoppable, it's just on and on and on, and we get all the superhero movies. I just hope that in that environment there's still going to be room for a bit of money to go toward filmmakers like me, actually, but also just those sort of lower or even mid-budget movies get their time and manage to get into cinemas and get out there and be seen.
Okay, we've got a comment that has come through here from Demi, I think it is, virtual reality will bring quite a bit of excitement in the world of cinema in the coming years. How do you feel about that? Because that's adding a lot more technological stuff.
Yeah, he's certainly very right about that. I think in terms of the 3D animation, special effects, CGI, and also as well, a lot of the sort of like environment which you're in as well can certainly have a major influence on how you perceive a movie, and its sort of influence it has on, I guess, not only you but the sort of people around you as well. If you have a look at films like Avatar, films like Gravity, films like, Demi is a filmmaker himself, and he's got an upcoming one as well that sort of, I guess, focuses on those themes. And I guess the way it's presented in cinema will probably have quite a huge bearing on how people will perceive it.
Any comments from you about that, Matthew?
The only thing I would say about that is I think it's going to be fascinating to watch, but I still believe that people will go to the cinema. People nowadays talk about, maybe cinemas won't exist anymore. I think that's nonsense. I think as long as sport is around, the cinema will be around too, and people will go to see a movie in the traditional way. I think there's something about being part of a communal experience. I was talking about cinema earlier as being a sacred experience, and I think that's true to some extent. So there's always going to be things that come along that, like 3D, that are a little gimmicky. Virtual reality is something else entirely. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch. But I still think there's going to be a place for going to the cinema, to watch a movie on the big screen, and long may it last. I don't mean to sound old-fashioned. Maybe I am, actually. I'll just...
No, you're an old-fashioned filmmaker.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I guess because I just love classic cinema, so I do.
Right. Demi, would you like if you add a comment and just tell us about what film it is that you're working on, or what its working title is, if you're able to do that? Or so obviously that's a really interesting question, and virtual reality will do a lot of things, not just for cinema, but I mean I think the whole world of learning is changing around these fantastic changes in technology. So I'd love to hear another comment coming in from you. And what we've got another one that's coming. Demi says cinema will continue to exist, but virtual reality will enter the cinemas too. And I think yeah.
And I'd love to see a virtual reality horror movie, David. That would be something.
That might be quite scary, Matthew.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, right?
I'm just going to select this one from Peter Lane and ask you guys to comment on it. Peter says, some of the best movies are painful to watch, which contributes to their greatness. But it's counterproductive to the objective of mass market cinema to entertain. So any comments about that? Some of the best movies are painful to watch. Some of the best movies that I've ever watched have made me squirm and uncomfortable, and cry and get angry, and particularly when I was a young man, I would a kind of gut-wrenching cry for justice. So I think there could be something in what Peter's saying. Love to hear what you guys have got to say.
Yeah, he's certainly very right. When you're looking at films such as Tootsie, Schindler's List, a lot of war films as well in particular, and also ones with nasty tyrants at the centre of the film too. It definitely is one in which sort of you cringe and feel uncomfortable, but then you don't want to look away either, as to miss something which might happen very soon. And people who don't enjoy those films, are welcome to not enjoy them, but I think it's definitely part of the experience. If you can't feel a person's sort of sense of justice, their longing for peace, and also I guess normality, which to them is sort of means without violence or without sort of cringing or being uncomfortable, it's sort of a very tall order, and I think it relates a lot to I guess, our desire to sort of go and experience that and then sort of come back into our own world and think, phew, at least I don't have to deal with this like that person. So I think it sort of gives you hope as well.
Yeah, and I agree too. I think I've been thinking about the movie City of God. What a great film, but very hard hitting, extremely upsetting, all of those kind of things. So I agree. Although I have a two-part answer, I think there are a couple of filmmakers out there who make extremely unpleasant movies that I really hate. So I just think of that Lars von Trier with his Nymphomaniac. And, yeah, I go out of my way to avoid his films just because I think they're unpleasant for the sake of it, and he's trying to be controversial, and I don't like that kind of thing.
I think Eli Roth's Hostel films as well also sort of noticeable for their complete savagery. I mean, the whole story behind it is these people that are absolute psychopathic maniacs that pay to torture and kill people, and I think that sort of filmmaking, it almost seems like talent wasted, really, and resources as well.
Yeah, very true.
Just coming back to that film, that other film you mentioned, Matthew, and the title's escaping me. I was going to say, what's that film about? Yeah, this was the opposite of.
Do you mean Inside Out?
No. Doesn't matter. We won't worry with that one. Tell me more about Inside Out.
Oh, well, Inside Out is a Pixar movie, and it's like all of their films, it crosses over to an adult audience as well. And I picked that for a Christian group because I just found it so powerful and so profoundly moving. And it's really simple. It's just about this girl, and it's inside her mind. And so there are all these characters who are represented by, there's joy, sadness, fear, and some of them sort of take over, and she's just left with the negative ones, and then decides to run away from home. Beautiful, beautiful movie. But I think there's just a lot in there that would be great for a group to discuss and think about further. And it's very thoroughly enjoyable and moving film as well.
So we're sort of coming towards the end. We've done 40 minutes. So I want to go for a few more minutes because I think we're just starting to get really quite into the heart of a discussion here. And that discussion is that some of the movies that may not necessarily be great, top number 1 or top 5 list, nevertheless might have the kind of impact that we'd like to feel for years and years and years. So it may not be the sort of the thing that drives us straight back and put it at the top of the list. And I get the impression, Matthew, just you're making movies, I get the impression that as you make them and as you sort of get more and more into the making process, your critical judgment changes about the kind of movie I'm talking about, the thing that keeps drawing you back time and time again. So it may not have won the Oscar in 2015, but it may turn out to be the long-running best movie. It may also turn out to be the one that won the Oscar. But any comment about that?
I'm always going for my goal is to make a flawed masterpiece. If I can achieve that, then I'll be very happy because most of my favorite movies I think are flawed masterpieces. So they're not they're not in the critics' top lists, but they're definitely in mine. So I'm not sure what that means, but that's sort of my take on it.
I actually think that's really, really important because the things that drive us passionately, whether it's making movies, marketing movies, and I'll come to Demi's comment in a second, the thing that drives us is putting passion into our particular products, whatever it is that we're doing. And a few weeks ago, I did a fantastic interview with a guy called Clive Dyson and a lady called Barbara Moller, and they they were doing very small-scale activities. Clive is the Kiwi toy maker, but the passion that he was putting in to crafting these toys and getting them out to kids in need spoke volumes. And it's that kind of enduring action that may be captured in some of the films that aren't going to be up there in the top 10. And so I think you've just got to keep going. Demi, thank you very much for your comment. I'm going to ask both our participants to answer this one. Demi says, the film I'm working on is a sci-fi feature called ARA, A-R-A, that implements in its plot multiple realities, the power of our dreams that determine our future, as well as how we all use the technology available to us. Demi, you and I got to sit down and talk, and we could talk about Carl Jung and the power of dreams, which we were discussing earlier in the interview. I love that this is a film that it's got multiple realities in the plot, sure, but the power of our dreams. What a fantastic comment. Yeah, Stuart, you probably know Demi and can comment a bit more about this.
Yeah, well, if you actually have a look on the Cinemaddicts Facebook page, the ARA poster is on there. I think it's the sort of banner photo that we've got up. So it's definitely something which we'll be keeping very close eye on. And we've done a review of Demi's other work, and I think we've shared some of the trailers to it as well. So yeah, we've got a good sort of working relationship, and look forward to sort of seeing what he comes up with in this. And I think particularly the whole idea and the concept is fascinating and intriguing, because a lot of people sort of, I guess even scientists who study it all their lives in particular, there's a lot of unknowns about dreams and I guess the power and influence it can have on reality, because the whole deja vu moment sort of does stem out from, I guess, dreams we had, and then sort of happens in real life, and we sort of think, oh, shucks, has that happened again? So I'd be interested to see it, and I cannot wait to go and attend the media screening of it.
Whereabouts are finding it on the site? Brought the site up.
If you go onto the Cinemaddicts Facebook page, it'll be on there.
Oh, it's on Facebook. Okay, right. Oh, well, I'll flag that one away. Sorry about that. But Demi, I'd love to sit and look at this on the Facebook page and maybe start to have a dialogue about it. And Matthew, so now there are two filmmakers involved in this process, which is fantastic. Okay, well, I'd like to say thank you to the folk that have participated, Peter, Demi, Matthew, Stuart. We'll get this out on YouTube tomorrow. And one last comment has come through from Demi. One thing that ARA is not, the film is not big bang action film, and it's more philosophical aspects to it. So that probably appeals to me, but I guess it also is that's the genre that it's working in. So yeah, thanks again, guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And we'll.
Can I just say one more thing, David? I was just having a look at New Zealand film recently, and it's quite interesting to note that the Commerce and Industry Office in New Zealand issued a press release with the headline "Exciting Year for New Zealand Film," and then right above it was a headline by Liam McGurran from Flicks, who wrote a piece in the Herald titled "How Badly Did This Year Suck for New Zealand Film?" So it's sort of quite an interesting contrast in people's opinions.
Yeah. Okay, and so we'll say good night, and thank you very much again, and we'll get this distributed out across the various media. Thanks.
Thanks.